A new world order is emerging. Nations are shifting alliances. Global power is being reshaped, and for the first time in decades, the dominance of the United States is being openly challenged. From Brazil to Saudi Arabia, from Turkey to India, countries are stepping away from Washington's influence. In today's video, we break down how key nations are redefining their global stance, why they are distancing themselves from the US, and what it means for the balance of power in 2025 and beyond. Don't forget to subscribe to GlobeBit YouTube channel for more insights on global trends and geopolitics. For decades, the United States has been the world's dominant force, politically, economically, and militarily. You know, like that friend we all have who's always had to be the center of attention. They call shotgun in the car, pick the restaurant, and somehow even manage to make your grandma's funeral about them. And look, sometimes that dominance has been a good thing. The US has, at times, been a force for stability, democracy, and even, dare I say it, freedom. But let's not kid ourselves, it's also been a bit of a bully, throwing its weight around, starting wars based on flimsy evidence, and generally acting like it owns the place. But the thing is, even the most self-absorbed friend can wear out their welcome eventually. And that, my friends, is what we're seeing happening right now on the global stage. Countries are starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, America's way isn't the only way. Remember that whole indispensable nation thing? Well, it turns out the world can be quite resourceful when it needs to be. Countries are forging new partnerships, building new alliances, and generally telling the US, in a very polite, diplomatic way, to shove it. Now, I'm not saying the US is going to disappear anytime soon. It's still a powerful country with a lot of influence. But what I am saying is that the days of unquestioned American dominance are over. Let's start with Brazil, shall we? The land of samba, sunshine, and enough rainforest to make you weep with envy, or despair, depending on how you look at it. Brazil, my friends, is a big deal. It's the largest economy in South America, a continent that, by the way, is larger than you think it is. Seriously, go look at a globe. It's massive. And Brazil has started to realize that it doesn't need to rely on its old pal, the US, as much as it used to. Instead of looking north for economic and political guidance, Brazil's been cozying up to, well, everyone else. China's become a major trading partner, Russia's supplying them with some seriously fancy military hardware, and Brazil's even joined forces with other emerging economies like India and China in a little group we like to call BRICS. It's enough to make your head spin. Brazil is looking out for its own interests, just like any good self-respecting nation should. And if that means diversifying its portfolio of friends and allies, well, more power to them. Now let's talk about Saudi Arabia, shall we? The country that's basically a giant sandcastle built on a foundation of oil, and well, let's just say complicated religious views. For decades, Saudi Arabia and the US have had this kind of transactional relationship. You know the type, we'll sell you all the oil you need and in return you'll look the other way when it comes to our, shall we say, less than stellar human rights record. And for a long time that worked out pretty well for both sides, but lately, things have been getting a little, shall we say, tense. The US is trying to wean itself off of fossil fuels. Saudi Arabia is feeling a little bit threatened by all the shale oil production happening in the US, and oh yeah, there's that whole Jamal Khashoggi thing that's put a bit of a damper on the bromance. But here's the real kicker. Saudi Arabia recently agreed to start selling its oil to China in yuan. That's right, folks, the petrodollar, the bedrock of American economic dominance for decades, is officially under threat. This is a big deal, people. It signals a fundamental shift in the global balance of power, one that could have far-reaching consequences for the US dollar, the global economy, and the future of international relations. Like, Elvis has left the building big. Chapter 4: Turkey, NATO's rebel. Now, let's hop on over to Turkey, shall we? A country that's about as geographically confused as a teenager trying to decide what to wear on the first day of school. One foot in Europe, one foot in Asia, and a whole lot of internal conflict to keep things interesting. Turkey's been a NATO member for decades, which, if you're not up on your Cold War history, is basically like being in a club where everyone agrees to defend each other, if Russia ever gets any funny ideas. But lately, Turkey's been acting like that one friend who shows up to the party, drinks all your beer, and then starts a fight with the host. They've been cozying up to Russia, buying Russian weapons systems, and generally making life difficult for their NATO allies. Turkey's got its own interests to look after, and those interests don't always align with those of the United States. So maybe it's not surprising that they're looking for new friends, even if those friends happen to be, Russia. Chapter 5 South Africa stands against the US. Alright, let's shift gears and head down south, shall we? To South Africa, a country that knows a thing or two about standing up to bullies. Even if those bullies happen to be, the self-proclaimed leader of the free world. South Africa's been making waves lately by refusing to toe the US line on, well, pretty much everything. They've refused to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine, they've strengthened their economic ties with China, and they've generally been giving the middle finger to anyone who tries to tell them what to do. But here's the thing, South Africa's got a long and complicated history with the West. They spent decades struggling under the brutal apartheid regime, and they're not about to let any country, even one as powerful as the United States, dictate their foreign policy. They're forging their own path, one that prioritizes their own interests and their own values. Chapter 6. Mexico, the unexpected challenge. Now let's pop back up north, shall we? To Mexico, a country that's often overlooked, misunderstood, and generally treated like America's slightly embarrassing little sibling. You know the one, always borrowing money, crashing on the couch, and occasionally showing up at family gatherings with a questionable new significant other. But here's the thing, Mexico's all grown up now. They've got a booming economy, a vibrant culture, and a newfound sense of confidence on the world stage. And they're not afraid to use it. Mexico's been quietly but steadily reducing its economic dependence on the United States. They're ready for a starring role, and they're not waiting for permission to take it. Alright, let's take a quick trip over to India, shall we? A country that's home to over 1 billion people, 1,000 different languages, and enough cultural diversity to make your head spin. India's been doing its own thing for centuries, thank you very much. And they're not about to start taking orders from anyone now. They've got a rapidly growing economy, a burgeoning middle class, and a whole lot of ambition. India's been playing a very clever game of geopolitical chess, balancing its relationships with the United States, Russia, and China like a pro. It's a delicate balancing act to be sure, but so far they've managed to pull it off with remarkable skill. Now let's hop on over to Europe, shall we? To Germany, a country that's known for its efficiency, its love of beer, and its, shall we say, complicated history with, well, pretty much everyone. Germany's been a staunch US ally for decades, but lately, they've been starting to have second thoughts. The war in Ukraine has really thrown a wrench into things, forcing Germany to confront its dependence on Russian energy and its role in the evolving European security architecture. Germany's been dragging its feet on sending weapons to Ukraine. They're hesitant to fully commit to NATO's eastward expansion, and they're generally giving off some serious "I'm not sure I signed up for this" vibes. It's like they're realizing that maybe, just maybe, being America's best friend in Europe isn't all it's cracked up to be. Alright, let's head over to the Middle East, shall we? To Iran, a country that's been called a lot of things, a rogue state, a terrorist sponsor, and, my personal favorite, the axis of evil. Iran's been at odds with the United States for decades, ever since that whole hostage crisis thing back in the 70s. And they've been under crippling US sanctions for years, which, let's be honest, hasn't exactly made them any more well-disposed towards the West. But here's the thing, Iran's got a new BFF, and it's none other than, you guessed it, Russia. The two countries have been deepening their military cooperation, sharing intelligence, and generally making life difficult for the United States and its allies in the region. It's enough to make you wonder if they're planning a joint vacation to Disneyland. And finally, let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? China, a country that's so big, so populous, and so economically powerful that it's basically a planet unto itself. China's been playing the long game for centuries, patiently building up its economy, its military, and its global influence. And let's just say, it's paying off. China's now the world's second largest economy, and it's on track to overtake the United States as the world's largest economy within the next decade. They're investing heavily in their military, building aircraft carriers, hypersonic missiles, and all sorts of other fun toys that make defense analysts lose sleep at night. China's not looking for a fight, not yet anyway, but they're also not afraid of one. The world is changing, and the balance of power is shifting. Will the United States adapt, or will it continue to lose influence? Will it learn to share the sandbox, or will it throw a tantrum and storm off? One thing is certain, the coming years will redefine global politics as we know it. Look, I'm not saying the US is going to disappear overnight, it's still got a lot going for it. A powerful military, a dynamic economy, and Beyoncé. But it's time for America to wake up and smell the geopolitical coffee. What do you think about these global shifts? Is the US in decline, or is this just a temporary setback? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to the GlobeBit YouTube channel for more insights and future videos on global trends and politics.